It's kind of crazy that back then you could just have a kid, and then if you didn't want
I
it, you were
know.
just like, yeah, I'm just going to leave it in the pig pen.
I know. I wonder, if they had birth certificates in Mexico during, the 30s. I don't know what the standard was back then.
They didn't even check. I believe when my dad was born, I don't even think they gave him a social security number back then.
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. My grandpa, he changed his social security and his identity at some point. He was born in like 1918, and then he had an ID or a birth certificate that said he was born in 1914 with like a different name, because supposedly somebody with the same name committed a crime, and he wanted to change it so that he wouldn't be related to the crime. It's like, maybe you committed the crime.
Yeah, maybe you were trying to get away from something.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
I've heard a lot of stories like that with people whose parents kind of changed their age so that they could start working sooner. A lot of Latino families.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they like drop out of school in like the second grade.
You're like, yeah, you're going to work now.
Yeah.
Because the family needs some support. And
how horrible.
Different era, different generation of people.
It is. It is really sad. I would hate to have to work at like 7, My husband kind of, not the same. He's Mexican. His family had a Mexican restaurant where that Siam Orchid restaurant is.
Yeah.
They had like really good Mexican restaurant there for years. And so he started working at like 12 as like the busser. And that's just what they did. Like all of them worked for the restaurant all their lives.
It's just a different era.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got kids that are just scrolling TikTok for 8 hours a day.
I know. I have so many opinions on social media in general. I just can't stand like the generation that they're so absorbed in technology, and now AI. And I think AI has its place, but it feels like everything is getting so far away from just connection, meaning, feelings, and it's just getting lost, I feel, like in the cyberspace of
Well,
things.
it's kind of a double-edged sword for you, right? Because you need those platforms to put out your art so that people can find you and see what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it also is a huge time suck. And you can just get sucked up into scrolling for 8 hours a day.
It is. And it's like you can't get anywhere without making content. You can't get anywhere. But it's also the worst thing ever to make content. I hate it so bad. And I always have like, I don't know, the feeling of being perceived, like making your own videos. I know it's cringy, and they say like you have to get over the cringe mountain to get successful, but it sucks. It's really horrible.
And then do you get a lot of comments on your stuff?
I guess it depends on how many views it gets, but I'm not consistent enough. They say you have to like post 3 times a day. Like that's a bit much. I have a life, I just want to paint and sell my paintings for thousands of dollars. I don't want to spend like a large portion of my day creating content. So,
but again, it's almost like you have to do that today. Otherwise you just get buried in all of the other content that's out there.
Yeah, it's true.
Does the AI stuff freak you out when you see some of those generated images and stuff?
Yes, the art aspect of it does, because the reason why people create art is like their own feelings, perspectives on life, their own experiences, and AI doesn't have that. It doesn't have a viewpoint. It doesn't have a perspective. It's just given a prompt, and they'll all come up with the same thing because they're all running on the same generator. But every human being, every artist has their own perspective on life. And so if you gave, I saw this on TikTok, oh, here I go, of this one guy saying that if you gave 20 artists a prompt, they would all come out with something different. And so that's kind of how I feel. It's like you're taking the personal element away from art by giving it to a computer to make. And I don't know, it just feels really soulless,
Yes, but at the same time, some of it is pretty insane. Like, it's getting so good.
It is. It's
to the point where you're like, I'm not even sure if this is AI or if this is a person that made
like
this.
The Google, I don't know what it's called, but you've seen
the VO3 that's doing the videos.
That's crazy. It looks so real. But I feel like you can always tell by the hands.
There are some giveaways, but we're so close to that not being a factor anymore.
That's really scary. And how they can take like Frank Sinatra's voice and like make him sing, a popular song. Like that is really scary. It sounds so real. What is next?
And what happens when that gets to a point, especially for music, where artists think, why create my own song? Why don't I just tell AI the vibe I'm kind of going for and let it create a hit, and then I'll just record it. Or maybe not even record it. Maybe just upload a sample of my voice.
I know. That's really scary to me, actually.
Have you seen those Bigfoot vlogs? That's what I always fall back on, because those were everywhere for a minute. And I was looking at those and thinking, this is insane. And this is still the early days of what this technology is going to be.
I feel like it's probably been around for a long time. It's just now been released to the public.
Yes.
I think, like, a couple years ago, or maybe it wasn't even a couple years ago, when it first got introduced, and it was like taking old vines, and it was like making them change, and it was so bad.
So cheesy.
Yeah, and now it's so realistic to the point where elderly people are getting scammed, or kids like can't even tell what's real and what's not. That is really scary, like the progress. So I feel like it's always, or it's been around a lot longer than we've seen. So I'm also, that makes me wonder how advanced it really is. Like,
way more than what we have access to.
Yeah.
You got to think DARPA or some government agency has cutting edge stuff that they're just keeping in a box somewhere, using for their own purposes.
Yeah, and I wonder if it'll be used for like brainwashing at some point.
It kind of feels like we're already there.
Oh, yeah.
To some extent, especially with social media, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you can just kind of lull the masses into a steady stream of just scrolling.
Yeah.
And new data and new content.
Yes, and it's like constant, like the dopamine hit is just constant. And then children are like addicted to it to the point where...
And it's not even a good dopamine hit.
No, it's not.
It makes you anxious. You start like, or at least for me, I start spazzing if I'm scrolling too long. I'm like, what am I... You get this overwhelming sense of dread.
I know.
What am I doing with my life?
And I'm such an emotional person. I'll see like a Hope Corps video of like a little dog saving a kid, and I start bawling. And then the next video is like the funniest thing ever. And so the emotional roller coaster is so vast and quick to change. I feel like that's not good for the brain.
We're definitely not designed for it.
No.
I mean, it's definitely playing on how we evolved and our dopamine system and how we function. I mean, they brought in psychologists to design these apps and design the little notification noises and all of this that went into these apps just to keep us hooked. I mean, it's cheesy to say because so many people have already said it, but it is like a drug.
It is.
And you just have a steady stream. It's an IV directly into your brain. And we're just,
I know.
Give me the next video.
And the kind of, what's it called? Like the lingo that kids are like coming up with through social media.
I'm so far behind on all that.
Are you?
Yeah, I can't keep up.
Well, I only know because I have a kid and I see like the videos of teachers talking about the stuff they learned from TikTok. And also there's things on TikTok that, kids should not see because the platform has it seems like it has very little regulation. And so that's kind of concerning as like a mom. I mean, she doesn't watch TikTok, but it seems like eventually they all do get there. So that's kind of scary.
How old is your daughter?
She's 6.
6. Okay, so she's getting to the age where she might start. Does she have a cell phone at 6?
No.
Okay.
She has a watch, and she does have have a tablet that she'll play games on once in a while. I try to limit it because it's really scary. It's like then you take it away and then they're just bored and they can't find anything to do. And that drives me crazy because boredom is like a gateway to creativity. Like you need to do something. And so if she says she's bored, then I tell her she has to start cleaning. And then all of a sudden she finds something to do.
She's like, actually, I do have some things in mind that I could do. Maybe I'm not that bored.
Yeah, my toys sound really good right now. So I try to limit it because I don't want her brain to melt.
And so many kids' brains are.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that a lot of kids in her class are already on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Probably posting videos.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's like a noticeable change over the summer. It's like she gets regulated. She goes back to school. And then they like come home and they're just different. They're different from being around all these kids that probably don't have regulation, probably don't have any discipline in their life, maybe don't have good parents. And so it's like a noticeable difference during the school year. So that's always interesting.
Does that freak you out at all when you think about that?
Yeah, of course. Because you are who you hang out with. And so I worry, if she's around kids that are doing things that are less than favorable, she's going to end up being like that. But I also try really hard to make sure that at home I spend enough time with her, teaching her proper values so that she can be able to assess for herself like what is good and what is bad. But she's really smart, and I'm not saying that as her mother, but like compared to other children, she's just very different. Very, very artistic too, which is really cool.
Does she draw or paint or anything?
Oh yeah, she's really good.
Okay. Taken after her mom?
Yes, she's very good. Very good.
It's kind of a weird concept that you just take your kid and surround them with other children and some adults who you don't know and say, okay, watch them for 8 hours.
It is. And
then I'll be back. And we're going to do this 5 days a week
I know.
for the next 18 years.
Well, it's the government's way of preparing them to just work for the rest of their lives, which I'm not a fan of government institutions, but I do like her school. But it's just like to prep them, sit at a desk, do your work, go home, take your work home with you.
Follow instructions.
Yes, sacrifice your life, line up when we say, eat when we tell you to. And that I don't really like because I feel like that's not actually living. No, it's not. I don't think that's good for a person either. And to do that for 12 years straight and then go work and like you just do what society tells you to do, I feel like that's a really dangerous game. But we see it happening, and we see how miserable people are in this country. Or around the world, actually.
Around the world.
Yeah.
But especially in this country. I mean, at least if you go to some of these other countries, they have healthcare, which helps.
Yeah, and also I think in a lot of the less privileged countries, they do seem less like they have less mental health issues because I feel like they have something to shoot for. And maybe that's like the survival mode. Like I have to get up, I have to work, I have to care for my family. But also that kind of makes you happy because you have like a goal. And I feel like in this country, it's unfortunately many people don't have goals. And because of social media and I know like a lot of people feel like they're unprivileged living in this country compared to other countries. I feel like they're kind of blinded by that privilege. And so it makes it easy to like make excuses and just like wander through life hoping that things change without doing things that are meaningful to change their life and to make it better for themselves.
And even outside of social media, it's just how life is structured. That you just wake up and you go to work, and then whatever time you have left at the end of the day, maybe you watch some Netflix.
Yeah.
And then you repeat the cycle again. You don't really have any time to think, okay, is this the job that I want to be doing?
Yeah.
Is this
what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, am I in a good place right now? Am I on a path that I want to be on?
Also, I try personally not to watch TV. I don't have a television. I can't stand the thought, which TikTok is no better, really, but I can't stand...
It's just a smaller TV.
Yeah. But at least it's free. I don't have to pay $20 a month for Netflix.
You don't have Netflix or anything like that?
No, I have nothing like that. Only because... Also, I don't like what's on there. Like, I can never find anything. I went to my parents' house last week, and we were going to watch a movie. We spent more time looking through everything than actually watching a movie.
That happens a lot.
And I don't like that. Like, that's a waste of time in itself. I'd rather be doing something like that's going to benefit my future in some way, and I don't think watching a TV show for 8 hours straight is going to do that on a day that I have off. That just doesn't seem... I don't know. Time is... I told you, I have an obsession with time. So to like waste time makes me very anxious, makes me very uncomfortable.
When you say waste time, do you view that as a productivity thing? That you have to be creating something in order for the time not to be wasted? Or can you just sit in a moment and still not be wasting time? Or how do you characterize that?
Well, I do have moments where I just, where I just sit, I just read, I'll journal, I'll pray, but I just find it, like if I'm not feeding my mind with something worthwhile, if I'm not bettering myself physically in some way, if I'm not creating something, if I'm not doing something that will make me a better person, I feel like I'm wasting my time.
You get a little stir crazy.
I do. I don't like to just sit and like do nothing. And the times I do, like if I'm sick and I have nothing to do, then like watch YouTube or something. By the end of the day, I feel so sick, like mentally, because it's like, even though I don't feel good, I feel like I should have done something else. So maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know.
I don't think it's a bad thing. When COVID was first going on, I caught COVID and I had it for like 2 weeks or maybe a week and a half. But for that solid amount of time, I downloaded Disney Plus and just watched a bunch of Disney movies. And I felt like I was losing my mind. It felt like I was making myself more sick because I couldn't do anything because I didn't feel well. And I was locked in my room because I didn't want to get anybody else sick. And so all I'm doing is just watching movies, thinking, your life is just passing by and you're stagnant in this moment. And for what?
And most people, I'm so sorry.
No worries. For people that don't know, you're recovering from an illness. So
yeah, I know, but it's annoying because it's like you come here to talk and your voice is like all messed up. But that's how most people live their lives in general. Like they work, they come home, they watch TV until midnight, they sleep, they wake up right before work, they go back. Most of them don't exercise. Most of them don't read. And I'm not like coming for them on a personal level because that's kind of how the system is set up. It makes you work just to survive, barely, and then
you out.
Burns
you get tired.
out. Yeah, you're too tired to do anything creative by the end of your work day. So then you just want to relax and watch something. But I also feel like it takes some self-awareness to analyze that and then say like, okay, I am tired, but I don't want to stay in this cycle forever. And also, you grow up having like a dream. Everyone tells you like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then you grow up and then they're like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah, pick something more reasonable.
Yeah.
Be an accountant.
Yeah. Do something, go to college. And then that's the other thing, college, like you pay all this money and half those people don't even end up in the field they went to college for. Like that's a scam. And that makes me sad. So it's like, it kind of makes it so that whatever pathway you choose, you kind of end up in the same spot of misery. And that's really sad.
What is your origin story?
My origin?
How did you, because you're an artist, do you work outside of that as well, or?
Yeah, I do some caregiving. I haven't always done it. I do it like off and on, but I do that at night and I can sleep. I don't do it every night, like 3 nights a week. But I've been doing that off and on since I was like 19. And I mean, how far back you want me to go? Well, I have some lore, I guess.
How far back do you want to go? Okay, let's hear. We were digging in prior to us starting about how we might be related.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry, that's so gross. Well, I've kind of had an interesting upbringing. My parents were both married before they got married to each other, and they had 2 kids. Then they met each other, got married, and they had me, so I'm the youngest of 5. And they're much older than me, so I've kind of been, in a way, like an only child growing up because I didn't really have any of them close in age to play with. So I would find myself sitting on the floor of my room, like making books, drawing for hours, and I was alone a lot of the time. But I was raised religiously as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and so I always had like a really close relationship with God. And then I kind of left that for a while in my early adulthood. I got, I guess, around people that I shouldn't have. And I guess that's why I like feel strongly about seeing the changes in my daughter, even at such a young age, because I realize how important it is to have people around you that will benefit you mentally, spiritually, physically, and also with your purpose. So I was like away from that for quite a while, and I like struggled a lot, like finding myself. I wasn't doing art for a long time, and I had like a rock bottom moment, which I'm a big fan of rock bottoms, actually. Like the only place you can go from there is up. So I think everyone should hit a rock bottom once or twice in their life. So I'm really glad I hit rock bottom.
Just hopefully it's not too much of a rock bottom.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're not shooting up heroin in a tent somewhere.
Right.
A rock bottom you can bounce back from relatively
Yeah,
easily.
especially like your mind can bounce back from.
Yeah.
Maybe not heroin rock bottom, but and so then I like turned back to God. And that's been like a journey in itself. But since then, my whole life has become like it's done a 180. Like it's been incredible. Everything in my life like has purpose and meaning. And I'm like just such a happy person now because of that. And so there was a long period when I was super unhappy. And I had my first marriage where my daughter's from ended. I got divorced. It was like, I mean, the last 10 years, I've probably lived like 8 different lives. It's been so
Crazy
crazy.
ride.
It has been. I am really grateful for all of it, though, because I am the person I am now because of all those experiences. So I try not to regret too much because all of it has led me to where I am. But as far as the art goes, I started painting again 10 years ago, like in the rock bottom time. And I thought, like, I can do something with this. I've always wanted to write children's books and be an artist, and I let that go for a while. But once I started, I couldn't stop anymore. So I've been doing that consistently in the last 10 years. But only in the last 5 years have I decided that I'm going to take it very seriously. Because why not? I might as well. Yeah. Why can't I? And like, why can't I succeed in doing it? I don't see many artists painting the same way or even similarly to what I do. So I feel like that in itself is a sign that I should pursue it. And I have this feeling that it's inevitable as long as I don't give up.
Most things are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just the trick of not throwing in the towel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really hard because I failed a lot. I fail all the time, actually, with my art or in general. And yet there's like so much success when you just keep going, even through the failures. And I feel like it just benefits a person to fail. And so now when I fail, which again, I do all the time, I kind of feel like, okay, I failed, but what's next? Like something good is going to come of this. I can't wait.
What can I pull from this failure?
Mm-hmm.
What was the rock bottom? What had happened in your life?
Well, I started doing drugs. Not heroin. I didn't do heroin. That was
important distinction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me make that clear. But it was leading down that path. And I thought to myself, you know, when I would see people on the street that were obviously doing really hard drugs, and I would see the state they were in, it made me really sad. And I didn't want to end up like them. And I wasn't talking to my parents at the time. And I was kind of just like living my own life and couch surfing. And I was just miserable. And I don't know what I was really trying to run from. I guess because, you know, growing up spiritually, like you are kept from the world. And so I thought when I turned 18, like that I was missing out, but I found out that I was not. And I was actually more miserable than ever before by being in that kind of environment and realizing that those people around me were not people that actually cared about me. I don't think a single one of them would have died for me. But everyone I grew up with, in my family, even in my congregation, like I know they would give their life for me. So I felt bad all the time, just feeling like I was kind of going against what I knew to be right. And the substances I was using they weren't benefiting me. And it was just like a distraction, which I think that's what this world is full of. It's lots of distractions. If they can't get you one way, they'll get you another. And so at some point, I just felt I had no money. I was driving a 1973 Volkswagen Beetle, a yellow one that had like spray paint, and it was such a mess and it was so unreliable. And yet during that time, it never broke down on me. And so I always felt like my God was taking care of me and watching over me. And I put myself in such dangerous situations, which now as a mother, I look back on and it's like, now I see why my mom was the way she was, because that stuff is so dangerous. And to think that I made it out of some of those situations, it seems like a blessing, like just
somebody
divine,
was watching out for you.
Yeah, like just divine protection. And so when I reflected on that in that moment, I thought, I can't keep doing this. Like I feel sick every day. I wasn't sleeping. Drinking alcohol, doing drugs, that stuff it just depletes you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And then once I made the changes, which has been an uphill battle since then, my life has really changed. It's changed the most actually in the past 2 years when I started running.
Which we talked about the night that we met. at the Friday night market when I was looking at your art.
Yeah, my life has changed immensely since then. I told you I have like a migraine issue that started when I was exactly 24 and a half. Just came on and never stopped. Like it has like a pattern to it, which is really strange. But I was praying one day because the pain was so bad, and I just got this thought pop into my mind to go and run. And so then I started doing that, and I hadn't worked out in I don't know how long, so it was very foreign to me when I started. But I noticed that if I ran with a migraine, my migraine would stop while I was running.
Which is counterintuitive.
I know.
I think I have a migraine. I probably shouldn't run or work out.
Well, that was the hardest thing. Like when you have a migraine, to get up and go run.
To do anything. To just get up.
I know. It is horrible. But once I started, it would just stop. And then when I would stop running, it would like slowly come back. So it was, I don't know. I thought that, okay, well, if I keep running every day, maybe they'll happen less and less. And it's true, they do. They're less and less the more I run. So I have continued to run, and I'm kind of glad I have the migraine in a way, because then that makes me run. If I didn't, then I probably would not run. And since I started running, I feel like my like the clarity in my mind is so hyper focused, and like I have so much more inspiration since I started running. Like I'm coming up with better ideas for my art, which is incredible. I've always been really creative, but it's like 100 times that. It's really cool. I'll like go on a run, start thinking of a painting I have an idea for, and all of a sudden like all these ideas come together. And by the end of the run, I have like a whole piece in my head. So that's really cool.
Talk about looking at the silver lining of having a migraine.
I know. Well, you can always find something positive in whatever it is you're going through. Or maybe the things I'm going through aren't that bad, so I'm able to find something positive. But if I look at it that way, then I'm kind of glad I have the migraine, because then it makes me thankful for the days I don't have them, and also keeps me running, and that's been worth it.
Did you ever go to a doctor and see what's going on there?
Well, to go to a neurologist, they don't even have any out in Humboldt County. You have to like go to San Francisco or Sacramento or Redding. And I never did, only because it's like thousands of dollars to go do all that. And so when I first told my doctor, she was like, oh, well, maybe you just need to change your diet and exercise. And I was already running at that point. And it's like, well, I'm not overweight. I don't have like any other symptoms. I think it's like my brain can't handle any kind of stress, because I notice if I get extra upset or anxious about anything, or angry, especially if I'm angry, which I'm not an angry person, but if I just get upset, the next day I'll have one. So I think it's like my body can't handle it for some reason, and like there's like malfunction in the mechanism of my brain.
It's like overloading your nervous system or something.
Yeah. And so it took a few months for me to get some medication. And so the medication, when I take it, it makes the migraine go away, like within 30 minutes. So I'm very fortunate that works. So I haven't had to go through one in like a year. So that's been really nice. But, they just want to give you a pill.
Yes, that's the MO.
Yeah.
Well, you just think those doctors are seeing so many patients. You just gotta give them something. Give them something to help.
But there's a reason and a cause for everything. A migraine is a symptom of a deeper issue. I don't know what that deeper issue is, but there must be one. But I've been trying a lot of things. I've tried to change my diet. I mean, not that strictly, I have to admit, because I really love, like I tried the carnivore diet for like a month. It didn't help. Also, it was super hard because I really love vegetables and fruit.
It's a tough one to stick to.
It is. And I do love meat as well, but to just give up everything else, that's really hard. I haven't tried vegan. So that's really the extent of how much I've tried, which isn't really much, but I don't know. I don't know really what to do at this point. I don't even know if I should try. There's people with like worse problems than me.
But also, this is your problem. You don't have to frame it like that. You can fix your problem. You don't have to worry about the world's issues.
That's true.
You'll be chasing those forever,
That's true. I know. I think like if my medication ever stops working, which is a possibility,
yeah.
then I would really want to figure out what that is. But I think it has something with like the timekeeping mechanism in the brain, the hypothalamus. It seems like that's what it is, because it also they're triggered by seasons and like a time. It'll come at the same time, even if I haven't had one in 3 months. It'll come at like the same time, and they last for like the same amount of time. It's very strange.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of them being on a routine like that. Normally, it's just, well, even from the people that I've talked to that have migraines, it's always like, oh, I was staring at a light source, or driving at night and saw a really bright light and it kind of messed with me.
Yeah.
Or I was dehydrated.
Well, dehydration, that's a really common one, but that's never my problem. I drink water, salt water all day long, so it's never the dehydration. It's just random, which is really annoying because and if it's like because of my feelings, then that's annoying because...
What are you supposed to do, not feel anything?
Yeah, exactly. Like I still want to be able to get excited or get angry.
Be a human being.
Yeah. So that's really frustrating, but also it kind of makes me interesting, you know?
Yeah. That is another silver lining, I guess. You have a good icebreaker at a party.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have migraines.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is funny because that came up within probably the first 3 minutes of us talking.
Yeah.
You brought up the migraines. We were talking about your art and you're like, oh yeah,
well,
go running.
Okay, that's not exactly how it happened. I didn't just start telling you about my migraines. You asked about the clock painting. And I don't even actually know how we got into the migraine thing now that I'm thinking about it.
Why did I bring that up? I need to be interesting in this moment.
Well, it worked out. I'm here on a podcast, so I guess that did work out. But I don't even remember why I brought that up. Oh, well. Anyways, we went over it again to refresh your memory.
You do have that. I mean, the painting was amazing. And for people who obviously haven't seen it, I can't recommend going to your Instagram enough because it's on there. Mm-hmm. And I really liked your video series on it where you're like painting just they were just short little reels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, that's probably my favorite painting so far. It took me about 3 months. But it's just... There's so much going on in it. And at first, like the first glance, it just looks like a whimsical wall of clocks. But there's so much layered in each clock. And that's kind of the direction I want to take my art is like on the surface, it just looks like a really fun, colorful painting. But underlying meanings are like embedded in every stroke of paint, which I feel like that's life in general. Like there's always a surface and there's always underneath, which is always more meaningful and intricate than I think people realize today because they are so distracted. And that's kind of the point of the painting as well. Like some of the clocks, they're all looking at the center one, but some of them are like in their own little world. You know, they all have the same time except the one in the middle. And it's kind of like society. Everyone's doing the same thing. Everything is happening at their own pace, and it feels like they're so distracted by what's really going on in the world, which there's a lot going on in the world.
There's a lot going on in the world.
I think more than ever right now.
I go back and forth. You know, sometimes I think maybe the world has always been this chaotic, and this is just our time when we're experiencing it.
Yeah.
But then again, it feels like it can't. There's no way that the past 100 years have been this chaotic. It just doesn't seem feasible.
Also, I think a big part of it is that now everything is on social media, on the news.
In your face.
Yeah, so we're seeing everything going around the world at once. Yeah, so it feels like way more. And also, I think that causes like a lot of anxiety for everybody around the world, which spikes the anxiety, spikes the depression, the mental health problems, and everything else.
Which spike the sale of medication.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So we can just kind of bandage over the problem rather than addressing it.
Mm-hmm. So do you think things will get better?
Ooh. Better in terms of the world doesn't blow up?
Yeah.
I don't know. But then again, I felt like we've been on a knife's edge for the past 5 years.
Oh, yeah. 10, I think, at least.
But we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? That we just maintain this weird balance of chaos, but it never really blows up in our face?
Yeah.
Or are we building to something and then shit hits the fan and we all realize, oh, this is way more fragile than we thought it was.
I think it's way more fragile.
It definitely is.
I think everyone's really hopeful because they don't want to think that in their lifetime there's going to be a nuclear war or AI takes over. And it's like all the movies, where robots are like ripping us apart.
Terminator.
Yeah. But I don't think with everything going on that like mankind is going to solve the problems. I don't think so. They haven't since the beginning of time. And it seems like they're doing a worse job every year, actually.
It does feel like we're getting worse.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any like knowledge or education on the Bible prophecies?
I don't. I was raised Catholic, but I kind of rebelled as soon as I could and have kind of found my way back to some extent now, but it's still, we have a tumultuous relationship, me and God, I think.
Mm-hmm. Really? So what do you think about like the things happening right now and how it correlates to what the prophecies?
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about the prophecies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've had a few individuals come on and talk to me, and every time they do, it freaks me out because they're like, oh yeah, this is exactly this part in the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so that means the world's ending? And they're like, well, yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, well, that's not comforting. Thanks for that.
Well, the Bible talks about the end of this world, which is ran by like demonic forces. And everything going on is like spot on in the Bible. It is kind of eerie because you would think, well, today's generation is like very far from accepting the Bible or religion in general. So they kind of discount it. But I think if you were to hear that this book from thousands of years ago has like the answers to what's going on, I feel like that is at least reason enough to check it out and dig deeper because so many people are so confused about the future. They're worried. They have anxiety. Like, why wouldn't you at least search for them in a book that has prophesied this years prior, thousands of years prior? I feel like that's at least worth looking into.
So what do you see with your background?
In the book of Matthew, Jesus talked about everything that would happen before the last days or before his second coming. And it is wars, famine, food shortages, pestilences, and so all these things happen at once. And people say, well, those things have always happened, but not to the degree that they're happening now. And it also talks about earthquakes, one place after another, which it's funny because my husband has this app on his phone and it's always going off with earthquakes constantly. And it's really funny because that it's just a reminder of that. But also the book of Revelation talks about like inflation. It talks about
monetary inflation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it also talks about, or the book of Daniel talks about the Anglo-American government, how it would split and how it would be divided and how it would be crushed and fall in on itself, basically, because it can't stand because it's so divided. And we see that today. Like, everyone's divided to an extent that has never, happened in this country's history. And so there's so much going on that is exactly what the Bible says. I mean, it's so extensive. I couldn't even tell you within like an hour. But laying that as the foundation for the Bible's promises and what it foretold, that also lays a foundation for the promise that God made to restore it. And so I think that's something that people forget to look at because it wasn't just like the world's going to end and that's it, everyone's going to die. But it talks about the earth being restored. It talks about, because God's original purpose was for man to be on earth and to be perfect and to fill it. It was never for mankind to suffer or to be diseased or for war to take place or even or for them to like actually live in a paradise with the animals and all that. And so the book of Isaiah talks about how God would restore that on earth, which many religions don't teach that. It's all about heaven and hell. But a lot of those teachings were not originally biblical. Like the doctrine of hell, the original words for that in the Hebrew and Greek scriptures were Gehenna and Hades, and neither of them mean a place of eternal torment. And so that's the difference between what the organization that I'm part of, we look at the historical context of the original Hebrew and Greek scriptures and translate that into modern English and try to look at not just what it says, but also the context, the history behind it, what was going on during that time, who was involved, so that we actually have the most accurate understanding of the Bible. So it's not just like fear-based, like you don't do what we want.
It's not doom and gloom.
Yeah, you're going to hell forever. Also, hell doesn't really make sense to me because why would a God of love put you in a place to be tormented by the devil, whom is the one that tempted you into sin in the first place? It's like somebody misleading your child to steal, and then you let that person discipline your kid. It just doesn't make sense.
But we kind of do that in society, right?
In what way?
Well, that's kind of what prison is, right? Somebody commits a crime, and then they're essentially just shoved off, and people are profiting off them having committed that crime.
Yeah, but it's not like the person who made them do the crime
is the one punishing them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like you don't get punished for doing evil things, but it's also, it seems unreasonable to burn someone forever. Also, in the place we are in the world, many people are ignorant to the Bible, and it's not necessarily like they want to be. It's just that they don't look into it, and we're all ignorant of something. So, I mean, would you cast them away forever because they just didn't know? It just seems unreasonable. I feel like a God of love wouldn't do something like that. So that's kind of where I stand. I do think that an end is coming. I feel like seeing everything culminating in the way that it is, and it being so clear and exact what the Bible says, I think that it's pretty accurate.
Everyone that I know that has really, I don't want to say studied, but has really gone through the Bible, they all say that. I haven't met anyone that's really, really familiar with the Bible that says something different.
Oh yeah. Well,
this isn't like the stories.
I'm not an expert by any means, but I do study it as much as I can, only because it really does bring me so much comfort when I see everything going on, because it's like,
even all the chaos.
Oh yeah, like I'm not worried about it really. If you sit and you think about it forever, it's like, it gives you anxiety. But in the long term, I'm not concerned because I don't feel like it's forever. I don't feel like it's going to last forever. And I'm kind of interested to see what happens. Like, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. And also, the time that we're living in is what all these prophets were looking forward to when they wrote their prophecies from God. They were thinking about, like, wow, the last days, like what that's going to be like, writing down these crazy things that were going to take place. Some of them would faint because what they had heard was so scary. And so to live in the time that they were trying to even imagine and thinking about, that's pretty cool.
See, I think I'd rather be the prophet saying the end times are going to come and this is what they're going to look like, rather than be the individual that lives through the end times. Yeah,
really?
Yeah. End times seem a little scary. Living through the chaos is one thing. Imagining the chaos is entirely different.
Well, a lot of those prophets did live through some really scary stuff.
That's true. Yeah, if you're watching people get crucified, that would be pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, or leading people out of slavery, or
into the desert.
Mm-hmm,
or we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Or getting thrown into a lion's pit. I mean, those things are like, you can't even imagine that happening to you, but it did happen. And so, but the moral of the story is that they went through all those terrible things, but they still got out of it, or they had their relationship with God, and God saved them oftentimes in miraculous ways. And so the end, I don't think it's something to fear. I think it's something to look forward to. I think it will reveal a lot to every individual about themselves, about what really goes on in this world. And I think also it shows like you can't put your trust in mankind, which the Bible also says. You can't, because they don't fulfill any of their promises. Nothing is ever changing. Or they make like one step forward and it seems like 20 steps back.
Sounds like our government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you walk me through this, when you look at what's happening with Israel and Palestine, do you see parallels to stories in the Bible? This idea of rebuilding greater Israel and all of that.
I know that they say that. A lot of videos I've seen of people talking about that kind of thing. They kind of put it with the Bible, and I'm not sure exactly, but I don't think that modern day Israel is the Israel of the Bible.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
It's not. I mean, once Christ came, and the Christian church was born, you know, he wasn't into Judaism. And so it kind of changed everything. And so I keep hearing this thing like, bless Israel and you'll be blessed. But that was in the time of Jacob. And Israel was also his nickname, like a nickname given by God, which is who was being referred to. So I think it's kind of a way that the government, and I'm not political at all. I'm really not. And I'm not even into like any government issues. But I think it's just another way for people to stir emotion across people that are Christian and are into politics. And then also like kind of get people to pick whatever side they want them on, kind of thing. But I think it's just being used. I think the Bible's being used as a weapon in a lot of ways, which I think it always has. In the wrong hands, it always has. But I don't think it's like actual significance. I think it's just another distraction instead of actually focusing on what's going on. Because why don't they ever bring up that? Like, oh, you know, all these things happening match these prophecies. Why don't we talk about that? But they don't talk about that. They don't want people to be aware of those things, because then that puts into the frame of mind of society that there is an end coming, or there is something to actually hope for, and it's not this government.
Do you think that this idea of the end is inevitable? That it is coming and it's going to happen, and there's not really anything you can do to stop it? You just have to ride the wave.
Yeah. And
that doesn't freak you out at all?
No, that's exciting. That's exciting to me. I think it's really cool. Because I look forward to the time when I'm not like under the thumb of a human government. I look forward to the time when Christ comes back and puts an end to the disgusting things of this world. I mean, you see everything going on. Personally, what bothers me the most is like the pedophilia going on in this world. That's what makes me really upset.
And the fact that the Epstein files are just gone in the wind.
I know. And that, I think that proves how depraved this world is when like pedophiles, which are the worst kind of people, are being protected.
Not just protected, but are in the highest levels of government.
Yes, they're the ones that hold the power. Like, how is that?
How did we get there?
Exactly. I think it's always been like that, to be honest. I think it's just now being exposed, which is another prophecy that Jesus said in the last days, everything would be exposed. And we see that happening. And a theory I have, which is funny because it has something to do with TikTok. TikTok is called TikTok, like the time is ticking away. And so many people have said like they've learned more from TikTok about the government, about the world, even religion and the Bible. Like they've like been awakened to a lot of the things going on in the world because of TikTok. And so I think that's kind of funny because the name itself is like the time ticking away. And so many people are becoming more aware. And I think that's a good thing. I think people should become more aware to what's going on. But I forgot where I was going with this. But no, I'm not worried. I'm really excited for what happens because I'm like, my faith is really strong, and every day gets stronger when I read the Bible and I see what happens. But hopefully, that means that, you know, all these people that are in power and doing heinous things, they no longer do it. Like it's just disgusting what happens in this world.
Well, if you thought of the worst thing that you could do, the worst crime you could commit, it would be against a child.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, the fact that we're kind of not us, but our government is kind of running cover for people who are doing that.
I know.
If you had to think, okay, what's a sign of the end times? Well,
That should be
covering
it.
for pedophiles is high up on that list.
Yeah, I would say so. And that's why I don't worry, because I want those things to end. And I know they're not going to end in the hands of any kind of government, because they're all, like, all around the world, they're all in it. They're all connected somehow. But that's also what the Bible says, that it lies in the power of the wicked one. So it's not surprising. It's not surprising that also it seems like there is a spiritual war going on in general, but also towards children with social media. Like, they are trying to target children, get them on, get them to watch YouTube videos that no kid should be exposed to. There's all kinds of scandals that I see on YouTube and TikTok that seems to target children and their minds. And that's scary. But
it is weird how everything is designed to target children.
Yeah.
Like every social media app, TV, like it's all designed to get you when you're young and then just have you ingrained in the system.
Well, it's kind of like grooming, Sorry, gross. But it's like they're grooming the children from the time. Oh my gosh. So gross. I'm so sorry. Just crop all
So
this
part
out.
of the fun of podcasting.
Yeah, it just feels like they're grooming children from the time that they're born to have a certain mentality, think a certain way, believe a certain agenda. And I feel like when you teach children, honestly, in my opinion, from the Bible, it really gives them a foundation of knowledge. And that's what I'm grateful for. Although many religions are looked down upon these days, I'm grateful that I was brought up the way that I was, because it's very easy for me to discern and sift through everything going on and like the information I'm given, because I have something to compare it to. And so far, many people would disagree, but so far I have not found anything in the Bible that isn't beneficial or correct in my own daily life. I mean, just the advice, like in Proverbs and Psalms, if you just applied that every day, you would be significantly farther along in life, and I think better mentally. And so I feel like if children are taught foundational information and are educated in that way and have a relationship with God, I feel like they're able to just not be so susceptible to the things that are going on in the world, or the information, like even with schools, the stuff that they're pushing on children. Sometimes it's really concerning, some of the books that are getting published.
Well, and the medications and the trans stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can get a little dark pretty quick.
It can. That's really concerning. And I have empathy for all those people going through all that stuff. But it is, sorry, that's really annoying. But it is really concerning for children in general, because they are very easily
crafted. They're like clay.
Yeah, they are moldable.
Or a blank canvas, and you can kind of...
And they absorb everything. I see that with my own kid. And so, I mean, that's why they do it, though. Because if you start when they're young, by the time they're adults, they're going to be the kind of generation that these people want.
Yeah, you can't do that with a 30-year-old.
No.
Who's lived life.
Exactly.
You're not gonna... They're not gonna buy in.
Exactly.
You might get some dummies, but
it's
you're
not
gonna lose
work.
a lot of people.
Yeah,
but if you can get them at 6 or 10, and kind of mold them how you'd like them to be in 20 years, you've got them.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's already been happening the last 30 years, like in our generation, which is why so many people have mental health issues, why so many people are unhappy, because all this stuff started probably in the 90s, specifically in TV shows and all that. Oh, going back, like, you've seen those documentaries coming out about like the stuff that happened in Nickelodeon. Have you seen those?
Oh, yeah.
That I did watch.
Run by pedophiles.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of us were watching those shows growing up, and they have like just weird things, you don't notice as a kid, and then you watch them back, and all that stuff you're like absorbing it, you're taking it in, and now like that's everywhere. And so it's kind of disgusting to put that in front of children. And so that shows the agenda. Like they want to victimize children mentally. and emotionally and spiritually.
And it works.
It does work.
I couldn't watch that little, was it a documentary or docuseries?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple clips of Drake Bell talking about it. And it was
so
like,
sad.
I can't watch this.
I know.
It just fucks with you in such a uncomfortable way.
It is. It is really sad.
It's real, and that happened to those kids.
And it happens a lot, even outside of Hollywood. I mean,
but especially in Hollywood, it just seems like it's part of the culture.
It's really sad. I'm right now working on a children's book about the mind, and it's my art style. The girl has like patterns on her skin and everything, but basically she's caring for a garden, and it's symbolic for her mind. So she's like taking care of it, planting seeds, pulling out weeds, discerning between like plants that look similar, but one is poisonous and one's good for you, like wild carrot and poison hemlock. Like they're almost indistinguishable. They're so close, but one will kill you and then one is edible. So I'm writing this book because I see a war on the minds of children. And I think that that's something that should be guarded. I think parents should be more careful about what they allow their children to see and watch and be a part of. Unfortunately, so many things are looked at as like no big deal. And then 20 years from now, they'll be
realize, oh yeah. In hindsight, that was actually
that was really
a big
bad.
Deal.
Yeah. But that history always repeats itself like that. But that's what I'm kind of trying to do, because that is something that I feel really strongly about is the attack on children. But also the generation's lack of like really good literature anymore. I feel like books aren't the same as they used to be. I feel like, Dr. Seuss, books aren't made like that anymore. The Giving Tree, Where the Wild Things Are, like all those books were so original and they had meanings and purpose.
And even those books aren't the same as when they first came out. They start making changes because people get uncomfortable with concepts.
I know. Or like the author wasn't this perfect person, so you got to ban every book. Yeah. But I feel like this generation needs books that
challenge
are different. Yeah. And have a meaning, because all the books that my daughter gets from school, they're meaningless. Like a lot of them are the most basic digital art, maybe even AI art. Like it has like no feeling to it. It's so basic, and has like no moral, no meaning, nothing happens. There's no story to like reflect on as an adult and be like, oh, that's what it was talking about. It's just like the most basic story. And I hate that. It feels like everything is just going downhill with art, especially, and literature and the contemporary art scene. It has like no soul anymore. And that I feel very strongly about as well.
You see that a lot in architecture nowadays.
I know.
Bleak. It doesn't inspire you. It doesn't make you feel anything. You're just like, oh, this is like an office building from the outside.
I know. And one thing about living in Humboldt County is all the Victorian homes, which I love. I love Victorian homes. But you see, like in cities, it's all gray and boxy.
Just concrete.
Yeah. That really makes me sad too, because even one Victorian home has so much detail, so much like intricate design, and they're all like different colors. And I think that is so cool. I feel like this world is just really lost color and, again, meaning. Like it's just, there's nothing. It seems so surface level. And that makes me sad. I feel like nobody has deep conversations anymore too. And I hate being that person that's like, oh, I hate small talk. But I really do.
That's why I do this podcast.
Yeah.
In part, is because it feels like it's the only avenue where you could, we're strangers.
Yeah.
And we're having a theological discussion.
I know.
And how often would you get that? Just talking to some random person.
I know. Or I've noticed when I try to, and not even like about the Bible or anything, but I just give like my opinion on something, people like instantly will shut it down if they disagree. It's like, we can disagree. I disagree with everybody on so many things openly, and I still like won't, like hate them for it. That's what I don't like. I feel like we should be able to talk, and even if we disagree, like
the world's not falling apart.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's ending. It might be ending, but not in this moment.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to religion. People get squeamish.
Yeah. Well, and also, I literally will go knock on doors and talk to people about the Bible. Yeah. I might knock on yours.
Well, okay.
Well, actually, I don't have to. Here I am. But But yeah, that's what I do. And also, like, actually, recently people have had way better response because they see things happening and they want to talk about that and they want some hope and they don't see it in the near future in like the government bringing it. So actually, I think in a lot of ways, spirituality is having a comeback because people are really concerned, which is good, I think. That at least opens the door for people to check it out.
Well, and they say that Gen Z is having a religious revival. There are a number, especially with Catholicism, there are a number of people who are joining.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to see, especially after what's felt like a decade at least of a really, really powerful decline where people are just kind of shutting out the church and religion more broadly.
Well, also I've seen a lot of videos of detransitioners talking about how they like turned to God and that's what made them detransition and how they're happier now. And so that's great because I feel like a lot of them are unhappy with something in their life. And so they're kind of just like trying to change the outside, unfortunately. But when you really do turn to God, like your whole life does change. Like it brings you a level of confidence that I don't think you can find outside of God. And I think that that is also lost in the world right now because they're trying to find it inside of themselves, in materialism, in music and entertainment, and they're not getting anywhere. And they're wondering why there's like an emptiness inside. And Jesus said that happy are those who are aware of their spiritual need. And so when you are aware of that and you then follow that and begin having a deeper relationship with God, things all of a sudden make sense. And you're like not worried about the world anymore.
Clearly I'm not there yet because I'm pretty worried about the world. I'm pretty worried.
What about exactly?
Man, all of it. You know, you have Poland, I think, just shot down some quote-unquote drones last night from maybe Russia, maybe Ukraine, somebody in their airspace. But things like that. And then you look at what's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
Or you look at what's happening. I don't know if you saw the story of that Ukrainian refugee who was stabbed on the bus.
Oh, I know. That was really sad. That is really sad, yes.
That one was pretty crazy to stomach.
That was
Like,
horrible.
you look at all of these things, and like you said, we're just so connected that all of it is in your face now constantly. It just is overwhelming.
It is. It is really sad.
I think the world's probably ending. Let's hope it's like the Bible and things are going to be good once it does. What does it say happens in the end? I mean, do we have war, famine?
Well, it says that Jesus said that it would be so bad that God would have to step in because if he doesn't, no flesh will be saved. So it's going to get to the point where it is that bad. Could it be nuclear war? Could it be famine? Could it be AI? I mean, it doesn't give specifics, but it says that basically it's going to be that bad.
Does that part freak you out a little bit?
No, because I know that if I die, it's still not the end. And so even death is not scary to me because like it's not the end.
It's just a transitionary period.
Kind of, but the Bible talks about death being a deep sleep. And many religions teach that when you die, you go to heaven or hell based on your deeds. But the book of Revelation talks about a small number going to heaven, and it talks about another class of people that will live on earth. And so then the Old Testament in Isaiah, Psalms, it says that the earth would not be destroyed. It would be inhabited by the meek and the righteous, that the deserts will flow with water, that everyone would have enough food to eat, that the lame would walk again. So basically, like disease would be no more. Children, a boy would put his hand into a serpent's den and pull the snake out and basically like be the king of the animals. And then we see when Jesus came to earth, he cured the sick, he resurrected the dead, and he fed 5,000 plus people with just a couple fish and a loaf of bread. So that was him fulfilling the promise in Isaiah of what was to come. So we don't believe that everyone goes to heaven. We believe that when you die, you do cease to exist, the Bible says that you return to the ground. And it's like the same as how the animals die. You just return to the ground and you're asleep. And so when Jesus resurrected Lazarus, he didn't bring him back from heaven. He said that he was sleeping. And so then he resurrects Lazarus and he is alive again. And there's like 9 resurrections in the Bible. And so we don't believe that everyone is just going to heaven. Many people are going to die, but the Bible promises a resurrection when they'll hear God's voice and they will come up from the memorial tombs on earth, which this is all biblical.
Great. So the end times have zombies now, too.
No, not zombies.
We're going to be in for a wild ride.
Yeah.
That's how little I know. I didn't even know there were more resurrections in the Bible.
Yeah, there's 9 altogether from the time of Isaiah to Jesus, or from Paul. Paul did one resurrection. But again, a lot of the Bible is twisted throughout history. A lot of it you can take a popular doctrine in a lot of these religions and trace it back to when it was established and what was going on in like the Roman government at that time and why they created a doctrine. A lot of it is money, control, fear-mongering to get people to just do what they say. So all of that has to be researched to get to the truth of what the Bible teaches. And so that's basically what we try to do, is have the most accurate knowledge of the Bible, the historical context, prophetic context, even scientific context. I mean, you want to be as accurate as possible so that you want to know the truth. Like, I don't want to be told something from a stand and then read the Bible and feel like that doesn't correlate properly. And so I want to be able to read the Bible, look at the context, and really understand what I'm reading. And know that I have like an accurate source of knowledge when it comes to God, who he is, and what he promises.
Do you go back and look at books that have kind of fallen out of favor and aren't included in current versions of the Bible? Or
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think everyone should do that. You should look at different translations of the Bible. And I mean, the interesting thing is that the name Jehovah is in the Bible over 7,000 times in the original manuscripts, but it's taken out.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the reason is because when the doctrine of the Trinity was established, which you can trace that back, they wanted everybody to believe that Jesus was God, and they wanted, and I'm blanking on like the specifics of this, but you can look it up yourself. And so that they made the doctrine of the Trinity basically to remove the name of God so that people would basically forget about it. And so it's interesting because if you get any Bible from any store, it won't have the name Jehovah in it, but it'll have all the false God names, like all the demonic names of other gods. But the name that Jehovah gave himself, God gave himself, when Moses asked him what his name was, and he said that he was Jehovah, that's taken out throughout the entire Bible. And so we have restored Jehovah's name to its accurate place in the scriptures because that's the name that he gave himself. And so I think that's also something to look into, because if God has his own name that he gave himself, shouldn't you try to learn who that person is instead of just taking a doctrine and just believing it because that's what you've been told your entire life?
That seems weird that they would change God's name if he said, my name is Jehovah.
It's not weird. I mean, if you were the devil and you wanted God to be this mysterious person, you start by erasing his name. The first thing you ask someone when you meet them is what their name is. That's how a relationship begins. But if you don't know someone's name, I'm not saying that God won't still have a relationship with you. He loves everybody. But how much more personal it is when you know his actual name. I mean, originally it's Yahweh.
But they keep that one in, right? So why leave one and take out another?
Which one? Which one do
Yahweh.
they keep? No, they don't.
Oh, Yahweh's not in...
That's the original translation. Jehovah is the English translation. Just like
really?
Jesus is the English translation of Yeshua. I think that's what the original pronunciation is. It's just the English version. But it doesn't matter the language. God said that he's the God of all tribes and tongues. So So it's just knowing like what the actual truth is. And I think a lot of people don't.
Well, it's hard to know what the truth is nowadays.
But I feel like truth will stand against scrutiny, and you should be able to test it. And so I do feel, I mean, Jesus, we believe, is the Son of God. So he's the Messiah. He's the one that Jehovah sent to basically come in his name, show what the kingdom is going to be like. So he's our Lord and Savior. But even Jesus said that there's only one person that's good, and that's God, when they called him good teacher. He said, why do you call me good? There's only one person that's good, and that's God. And he always referred to his God, the person that gives him the power. And also he said he doesn't come in his own initiative, but he comes in God's, or from God. So also, who's he praying to if he's God? You know, it's like all those things are like lost in translation, and they're just taken at face value instead of really scrutinized and researched and dug into. So that's why I believe what I believe.
Do you think if he came back today, people would embrace him?
Jesus?
Yeah.
No, they killed him once, they'd kill him again.
Right?
Absolutely. Maybe even faster now. They kill people all the time. I mean...
And if you've got some guy claiming to be the Son of God...
Oh, yeah. Performing miracles.
We got to take that dude out pretty quick.
Yeah, and maybe even condemning the government openly, and like the religious leaders telling them that what they're doing is not from God. It's from the devil, which is what he did, and they hated him for it.
Yeah, they would take him out pretty fast when you start talking like that.
Yeah. Well, they tried to kill him multiple times, but it wasn't his time to go. But that is why he came, basically to die. So that is going back to the original thing was, that's why I'm not really like afraid to die. Like, it's not the end of my life. I'll take a nap, but I plan to wake back up. And so it's like, when you have that confidence, there's not really anything to worry about, nothing to fear. Also, the Bible says to fear man is a snare, because don't fear the one that can kill the body, but fear the one that can kill the soul. And so
it's a great line.
When you have confidence that like you're in God's hands, whatever happens, I don't know, it's kind of cool.
It's just flesh.
Yeah, exactly. And the act of, I think, dying for truth, dying for God, dying for what is right, even in a really horrible way, I feel like that is the most honorable way to go. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my art, is have like a spiritual aspect to it and use it to talk about the end, which is what that clock painting is very much about, is the end coming. And, you know, many people, they come talk to me because they like my art, and it really opens the door to just have a conversation like this that otherwise they might not be interested in having. So I'm kind of trying to find unique ways to talk to people about what's going on, because it brings me comfort. If it brings me comfort, I think it would bring a lot of other people comfort too, to know that like it's not the end. And there's actually a lot less to worry about, I think, in the long term than they think.
Freaks me out.
Yeah,
I don't know how much comfort I have from this conversation. I've enjoyed it, but a comfort isn't the word I would use to describe. I mean, I completely understand what you're saying, and it makes sense, but at the same time.
Well, maybe it's because you're focused too much on
the bad shit that's going to happen.
On the bad stuff, yeah. That's why. But also, you've spent your life kind of focusing on what's going on. I mean, you grow up seeing everything go on, and you make these plans like financially and maybe family-wise, and then to see all these things happen, it makes you wonder if you'll have a chance to fulfill those things, and that's scary. That I understand is scary. But it's also, like, from your perspective, hearing this stuff, does it make you interested in what the Bible says, or like finding out more?
Oh yeah, I've tried to read the Bible. I got kind of hung up on Exodus when they started talking about the building of the tabernacle and all of that. I was like,
or the numbers.
I was like, I don't really need, this. I don't need a construction lesson right now. Can we, like, where I want to hear the stories.
Well, why don't you read the New Testament, like starting in Matthew about Jesus. You said you're a carpenter?
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Would that be a good place to start?
Yes, definitely. I think when getting back into the Bible, I think starting with the account of Christ is the best. Also, reading the latter part of the Bible, it turns into like a mirror. You start reading it and you start analyzing yourself as a human being, and it kind of opens your eyes to, I think, maybe what you then realize, like, what you should do. It's strange to say, but it really is a mirror. It's like looking at yourself in just such a reflective way. It's very interesting. I think everyone should read the Bible at least once. More, but at least once.
I'll have to read that, and then we'll bring you back on and we'll see. We'll
Oh, yeah,
compare
that'd
our
be
end
fun.
times notes. Say, okay, this is what's happening. Yep, I see it now. What about the Book of Enoch? Have you heard anything about
I
that?
have read the Book of Enoch.
You read it?
I have read it.
What did you... I've heard a lot about that recently. I thought about reading that one.
So, I'm not saying that it's not inspired. I don't have enough information. But what I found was that there were things in it that didn't quite line up with the genealogy that's in Genesis.
It sounds like it's pretty far out there.
It is. But it is really interesting. I can't lie. It was really interesting to read. The only thing that didn't make sense was that Enoch died before Noah was born, according to the scriptures. But in the Book of Enoch, he saw Noah grow up. So I'm like, well, I don't know. And it's also not written by Enoch. They say it was written like 100 years before Christ. So I don't know if it was like maybe folklore that was kind of, carried down through the generations, and then somebody compiled it and like wrote a fun, well, not fun, but like really cool story about like what could happen. But a lot of the things in there are really interesting. And the Book of Jude, which is a couple books before Revelation, one of the scriptures, it seems to quote from the Book of Enoch. So it's like, I don't know if it's inspired or not, and I don't know how much it was used during like the days of the apostles, but it seems like there is some kind of correlation. But that book talks about the end as well. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't read that one either. I think that's why I've been hearing so much about it, is because it talks about the end. And also there's a little craziness attached to it. So I think people are grabbing onto that. But
yeah. Well, the Bible is full of really crazy things. But I think a lot of people also take those out of context and like blame God for certain things that happen, when a lot of it is like a lesson from the imperfections of man and the things that they did. Whereas, there really is a moral to everything. And it's just full of people who made mistakes and then people who overcame them, people who didn't make mistakes. It's a book about good examples of how to live your life and bad ones. So that in itself is worth reading, just to examine who you are in relation to other people.
And seeing that dichotomy. Okay, what happens if I live my life this way as opposed to this other way?
Yeah, exactly. Also, the blessings you get when you are a righteous person. And I don't think many people think about the possibilities if they were to become, live their life in the full potential. I don't think many people do live their full potential, but I think that when you do and you align it with God's purpose, so much opens up for you, especially mentally. You think different. When you think different, I think life becomes different because you're focusing on different things that the world makes you think about and the world makes you focus on. So that kind of frees you. When you have a relationship with God, you are free. That's what the Bible says. When you know the truth, you're free. So that is another reason to read it.
Well, I think you're definitely right that we have this void in us if we don't have that relationship. And there are a lot of nefarious things that we can use to fill that void.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of like the whole purpose of this world, is to be so distracted that you have no time for God and you're just in a spiral.
And it works.
It works.
It gets a lot of people.
I know.
It gets a lot of people. Okay, well, thanks for doing this. We can get you out of here. We've done an hour and a half.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
I pushed our time a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It went by so fast.
It does, right?
That's
you get
crazy.
in here, you start talking, you're like, oh, shit. It's
I
been
know.
4 hours. My bad.
was fun,
Do you
though.
want to plug any of your stuff where people can find your art?
Yeah, you could go to my website at artbyrei, that's REI.com, or my handle for all my social media is artbyrei as well. I have my paintings and stuff on there.
And I can't recommend, again, enough for people to check out your clock painting, which is kind of what sparked all of this for us.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, check that one out too.
Cool. Well, thanks. We'll definitely have to do this again.
I know, it was fun.